This is this week's challenge, and yeah, it's easily the grossest, grubbiest thing I have ever tried to take on. And not gonna do too many spoilers here, but it actually gets worse. But this is gonna be fun. Hey, I'm Margie with the Asking Spot. I am an amateur furniture finagler. And I do some home decor stuff. Basically, on this channel, I ask, can I keep this from a landfill? So that's the plan. This is part of the challenge put out by Angie from Transcend Furniture Gallery, which, by the way, I've been watching her channel for a long time. She's a professional furniture restorer and flipper, and she's very generous with her knowledge, so I highly recommend you subscribe to her. This is her challenge. It's charity challenge. So the idea is we're going to take these pieces, make them fabulous, and in some way, somehow benefit a charity. So let's get going. Because I'm not going right into sanding, I'm actually going to use a stripper. I could just go directly into that rather than doing cleaning. But I have another issue on hand. It's that peel and stick on it that they put. Yeah, I got to get that off first. And because this thing is so filthy, I'm cleaning it just for me. The level of ew is kind of like that it had this tape because it's helping getting some of the paint off. In the time that it took me to finish painting this, with the smart strip, I already started to see results. Yeah, it's coming off. It says you don't have to, but I found I do have more success when I put in plastic. Note though that make sure your writing is out, not facing the piece, or it'll transfer the writing onto it. Normally, I like to use a nylon scrubbing brush for this. They usually work really well, but I didn't have one on hand, so I'm using an old scouring sponge. But it's still, in the plastic realm, so it didn't have a reaction to the chemicals or anything like that. After I used a power hose to rinse it off, and now I am just toweling it dry, and yep, I am going to apply a second coat. Working on this piece, coming across a lot of issues, but these spots, that's not mildew. That's a very promising wood type. That makes me excited to keep pressing on. I did a lot of focusing on the drawer because I figured it was a more manageable piece and we were having a heat wave. So if it started looking too frightful, then I could change course of action. But the bottom of the drawer, that split, yeah, I had to get that out and replace that. Getting these little nails out, not the easiest thing to do without damaging the rest of the wood, but I was careful. I think at one time or another, somebody must have tried to glue the base in because this chunk here that wouldn't come out. But I was able to sort of chisel it out. I did eventually get a chisel rather than this. But after that, then I moved on to replacing it, and that took a little more work than I expected just because everything needed to be re-glued and attached to each other before I could slide a base in. When it came to the base for this, that took a lot of work because older drawers like this are rarely perfectly square. So more like not measure twice, but measure maybe 16 times and plan on doing small cuts to fit it right. Have I mentioned it's 90 some degrees out? Phew. It's something I knew since the moment I saw this piece, but I've been reluctant to do it, is I need to take off this back panel. Shouldn't be that hard of a task, but what I'm really creeped out about is what's between the back panel and those little shelvings. Because everywhere else I was able to spray off or put some sort of cleaner on, and when we picked this up, there were ants crawling around it. So you know how some people are afraid of snakes? Maybe it's mice or cockroaches or spiders or bats. Um, I'm not one of those people. Nope, because all of those things, when they see a human, they don't want to see us any more than we want to see them. Ants, on the other hand, I've had numerously bad experiences with ants, and ants, when they see humans, they don't run away from us. No, they call their friends in and come to bite you. So, this is really even hard for me to watch what happens. So if you want to speed ahead, if you're anything like myself, go ahead. Double click, get about 20, 30 seconds ahead.
So freaking suspenseful. I love it.
So I was concerned about this part because this is an ink stain, and I was like, oh wait, there's an ant, and there's another. I decided, I better take off the back half. This little cubby here. Yeah, I hate to gross you out. Ants are my biggest phobia. So the fact that I am not raging and screaming right now while filming this is impressive to me. Yeah, so I'm removing that, and it's not coming back. Apologies for taking things a bit out of sequence because you can see the cubby's still there, but I wanted to get that gross stuff out of the way already. All right, so taking veneer off. I have never done this before, but what I had read was that you put a hot, damp towel on it and you leave it on for at least an hour. And then you could use an iron to kind of help get the glue reactivated. I was so thankful though, because I tried that and it didn't do much. I'm really happy I had a heat gun because that made it go off so much faster. It was actually kind of surprisingly easy. I have never done that before. I'm so excited it worked. Okay, so pressing forward now, it is time to sand before I can even start thinking about getting a veneer on to replace the old one. And yeah, lots of repairs to go. But with sanding, I'm gonna work my way up in grit. So starting with the chunkiest, lowest grit I have and going on up. Because I'm working in my garage, I'm gonna be using my orbital sander because it's got a bit of a dust collector. Hopefully I'm not trashing the place. The only reason I'm working in the garage though is because I can get the cross ventilation, shade, and I can have a fan on. So because so much sanding was needed to be done, I went ahead and put some wood filler on the top gap and kept on sanding elsewhere. Holy cow, for the first time ever, I feel like one of those tranquil YouTube sanding people that you see. They're like, oh yeah, just gonna sand it. It is the paper. This is not a paid endorsement, although I'd be more than happy to do it for 3M because holy cow, what a difference the sanding paper makes. Because, yeah. The reason I found out about it is I watched this guy do a whole review of different sanding papers and he got really technical with it. I'll have a link in the description box in case you want to follow up on that. But yeah, this is great sanding paper. This wood brightener, aka acrylic acid, is another tip I got from Angie in Transcend Furniture Gallery. It's because I'm dealing with a veneer that's got some staining and I just can't really continue to sand it anymore because I would blow through the veneer. And what I have been finding out from researching this wonderful bird's eye burl veneer is it's ridiculously expensive. So yeah, here's what I learned from Angie though is when you're putting on the acrylic acid, you want to keep putting on more while it's still absorbing it, and that'll help the process. And then I let it rest for a while and then came back and rinsed it thoroughly. After that, I went ahead and let it, wiped it dry as well as I could, and then let it dry in the sun. This took forever, but I measured the inside of the square because it isn't actually square. And then I measured again and again and again, and then just had to give it a little excess and cut it once, twice, well, a few times. First, put hot tap water in. Then, sprinkle some baking soda. Finally, left it out in the sun. It was kind of a hot day for at least a few hours, and wow, it was so easy to clean off. At this point, you could also use some barkeeper's friend. We had some that might speed it up, but yeah, no boiling, no other mess. Well, I've been sanding, and now I'm moving into the hand sanding point, so that's all good. The thing is after this comes the scary unknown. I'm gonna start trying veneer. I've never applied veneer. I've learned how to take it off, and that seemed easy enough. Let's see if putting it on is just as easy. Hopefully that light going out wasn't an omen. As it turns out, that light going out was an omen. This is actually my second application of the veneer on this because the first one, I tilted it just a little bit and it left a gap. Okay, so I'm cleaning off all the excess adhesiveness so I can reapply some new veneer. So I sanded it smooth, cleaned it off, and yeah, I'm using a spray adhesive. My local hardware store only had a big gallon of it, and I just knew I wouldn't use that much, so I didn't use the paint on. With this, you spray both the piece you want to attach the veneer to and the veneer. You let it sit for about 10 minutes. It'll be not super sticky, but kind of tacky. Then they'll stick together perfectly. And I didn't have a brayer, but this is an old piece of wood that's kind of softer on the edges. So it was perfect for getting it all pressed down. Then I used an X-Acto knife to give a preliminary cut through all of this and just a quick little crack, and boom, it was able to come off. From there, I had to sand all the edges so that it kind of smoothed out around it.
She did? Twice.
So I've been messing with test strips and just trying different stain combinations to try to get the color for this to go with this. I bought a lot of different stains and yeah, I haven't really nailed it. And worst is when I've gotten close, I have forgotten what stain combination I used. So, yeah, I'm gonna kind of just wing it on this. And the reason it's sideways is because when the stain drips, I didn't want it to drip on the rest of the piece. So, a bit of backtracking here. I did go through the rest of the piece and put wood conditioner on everything, and I ended up also kind of staining the whole piece, which I'm showing you this part because that 365 mark there is kind of cool. Don't know what it means. But in the end, I just couldn't get the top to match this bottom part. So I ended up using, I think, gun barrel. Yeah, that on the whole thing one more time in order to get a blend. And then on the top, I just had to reapply a lot. This needed a lot of cleaning, as you can see on the bottom there, but I'm just focusing right now, though, on the veneer repair on the drop-down part of the desk. You may want to look away. Here's the thing. This is my first time doing this, and I am trying to get it so I can get a fairly normal size veneer fill-in piece. Here's the thing, though. The veneer that I'm using, it's not cherry wood, and this front part, it needs actual bird's eye burl, which I did price out, and it's a lot. It was way more than I could afford at this time. So I'm going to try something different with this. Now, not going too much detail into what I'm actually doing to fix this veneer stuff because there are so many other YouTubers that do such a better job. Our host of this challenge, for one, comes to mind. So, again, watch her stuff. But here is the part where I experimented. I am regretting even showing this because I know this is going to displease a lot of people. But I did that effect on this because I didn't have the right veneer to fill these spots in. However, before you start clicking away about what a horrible person I am for doing this, remember these little veneer patches I'm doing right now are the least of the worries. No, are actually, should someone in the future want to put the proper patches in there, it'll be easy for them to do. So, this next tweak in the process, I am more than willing to defend. Here was my thought process there were some genuine ink stains on here. Not attractive, but still pretty cool. So, I did not want to try to restore all that, but covering it up seemed like the right thing to do. I have done fabric on furniture before, and I really like the effect it makes. Also, you can remove it fairly easily, and it doesn't do too much damage to the wood that you've applied it to. May need a little bit of sanding to get the adhesive off, but otherwise, everything is as good as when you first applied the fabric. So I stand by this change. After it dried, the top coat on that, it was time to slice off the excess, which is actually remarkably easy to do and oddly satisfying. Then it was time to give it another top coat, but I did a light sand in between. And actually, because this is going to be the desktop, I went ahead and did two top coats. Oh, and speaking of top coats, I did a wipe on poly in a satin for the rest of the piece, except for the very top where I had the veneer. Because I was concerned about losing any of the many layers of stain I put on it, I sprayed it first with a satin, then put the wipe on poly. Okay, pausing now to catch my breath. I'm a little anxious over this next move. Here's the thing. I tried to get a regular keyhole insert that would go with it, but the one I bought online didn't fit, and it just kind of was like, but why? The locking mechanism doesn't work, so it's not like I can cram a key in there. Well, I guess I don't have a key. I could maybe, yeah, I could also take the locking mechanism out and try to rework it and fix it and then put it back in. But why? Especially because this isn't a restoration. I have already gutted the inside, so this is more of a conservation, maybe? So I'm going for it. I'm going to put this piece on, and yeah, it does require me to drill some holes. A little nervous. All right, before we see the final results, let's take a look back at where we started. And once again, thank Angie from Transcend Furniture Galleries for hosting this fabulous charity challenge. And I encourage you to also take a look at all the other YouTubers participating in this challenge because, it's for charity. Speaking of which, here's the final results. And the charity I have selected for this, I think, is a great match. It's The Exchange, which is a consignment thrift shop here, but you can also donate 100%, which is what I'm doing. And the proceeds from this wonderful thrift shop, it goes to benefit the arts. They do art scholarships. So I am really, really pleased to hopefully be able to help them out with this piece. Thanks so much for watching The Asking Spot. So throughout this whole process, I have been wearing different shirts that I got from volunteering, and they were a lot of these are the food bank volunteering, and then I had a beach cleanup volunteer shirt. I also had one from Habitat for Humanity, and Children's Miracle Network. And it got me thinking about my mom always saying, you got to volunteer. It's not just good for the community, it's good for you. And she was right, because I really enjoyed volunteering. So I ended up, because of this, I signed up to volunteer for a new organization, and I hope to tell you more about it, maybe even have some videos to do with it, but it's got, classes and stuff I've got to do first, so we'll see. But I hope you will forgive me, though, if going in the future, as far as my videos here, I'm always going to try and put one out every week. But because of work and volunteering, there might be weeks I miss here and there, so I hope you'll bear with me and continue to support the channel, and thanks so much. You know how Indiana Jones had a thing about the snakes? Well, I have a thing about ants. I don't mind snakes, cockroaches, spiders, mice, rats. I'm fine with those guys, because those guys will leave. They don't want to see me any more than I want to see them. But ants? No. Ants say, "Hey, human, let me call my friends, and we'll all attack you."